Previously on A Love That Lingered, Arthur offered Grace his hand and a glimpse of something forgotten, a flicker of youth behind ancient eyes. Against Oliver's pleading, Grace followed Arthur upstairs to the rooms long left sealed, rooms that held the pieces of a past no one had dared disturb. This is Episode 5, The Painted Truth. The door creaked open with a sigh like the house itself had been holding its breath. A cold draft greeted them, musty with the scent of aged wood, linen, and memory. The room beyond was large, perhaps once a ballroom, now hollowed into a storage vault for the forgotten. White sheets clung to the shapes of furniture, chairs with curled legs, standing mirrors dulled with time, a piano with its keys hidden like teeth behind gauze. And along the far wall, looming and still, stood a collection of tall draped figures, the covered portraits. Grace stepped inside slowly, like intruding on a mausoleum. Arthur did not follow her all the way in. He lingered near the door, as if crossing into that space asked too much of him. The air was different here, heavy. "Why are they all covered?" Grace asked, not looking at him. Arthur's voice was soft behind her. "Because remembering hurts." She moved toward the nearest painting. Her fingers hovered over the drape before pulling it back. A man stared out at her from the canvas. Regal, pale-haired, and unmistakably Arthur, though younger. His expression was serious, yet not unkind. His eyes were familiar, still aquamarine. She backed away and moved to another. This one showed a woman seated beside him. Grace's breath caught. Red hair, dark green eyes, the same shape of cheek and nose. A soft smile that was unmistakably her own, and yet not, painted decades before she'd ever drawn breath. "No," she whispered. "No, this isn't possible." Grace's hands were trembling. She turned back toward Arthur, who had lowered his gaze to the floor. "I look like her," she said, voice taut. "That doesn't mean anything. Maybe she's my great, whatever. Maybe I'm just descended from her." Arthur slowly raised his eyes to meet hers. "You were not descended from her, Grace. You were her." "No." She backed away from him, heart hammering. "This is insane." Grace turned back to the portraits, needing a tether to reality. She stepped past a few more, glancing at scenes of ballrooms and gatherings. Then, her eyes found one painting different from the rest. It was a group portrait, wider than the others, the frame cracked at the bottom. It showed a noble couple, seated with dignity and pride. 3 daughters sat around them, dressed finely for the occasion. The eldest girl's hair was dark, her posture demure. The middle child had golden curls and bright eyes, but it was the youngest, perched on the edge of the chaise, with her hands clasped in her lap, who held Grace's breath hostage. Her. It was her. The same slope of nose, the same red curls, the same way she had smiled in her school photo when she was 8. The face was not similar. It was hers. Her legs gave a little beneath her, and she sat down heavily on a trunk, staring at the image in silent disbelief. Arthur spoke gently. "You were the youngest daughter of the Everly family, celebrated, loved, spirited, and a touch rebellious." A sad smile tugged at his mouth. "We met the day my father died. You were there with your family for the service. I was a wreck, grieving. I thought I was alone in the world." She glanced up at him, speechless. And then, you, he whispered, with a ribbon in your hair and tears in your eyes for a man you'd never met. I, I don't remember any of this, she managed. You wouldn't, he said. Not yet. Not fully. Grace's mind spun, trying to stitch the pieces into something that made sense, but they didn't. They couldn't. None of it felt possible. Say I was her, she said. Why me? Why now? Why would I come back? Arthur's expression grew distant, and he placed a hand on the covered piano. I don't know, he admitted. I only know that I asked the world to bring you back to me. Something in his voice shifted, the weight of sorrow mixing with the faintest flicker of madness. Grace noticed it, like a shadow around the edges of his words. And Oliver? She asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Was he here too? Arthur nodded. He was our steward. More than that, really. A constant. He stayed with us through everything, even the end. The end, Grace echoed. What end? Arthur didn't answer. Instead, he turned and gestured towards the final covered portrait in the room. This one was tall, nearly ceiling height, and wrapped in a heavier dust cloth. Grace stood, moving toward it slowly. Arthur's voice trembled. This was the last one ever painted, just after our wedding. She grasped the edge of the cloth and pulled. There they were. Arthur and Grace, side by side, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm, dressed in wedding finery. His face glowed with pride. Hers was radiant. Grace stared at it, transfixed. Something deep inside her ached, something that didn't belong to this life. She didn't want to cry. She didn't know why she would cry, but her eyes stung anyway. She turned to Arthur, her voice small. How did she die? Arthur's face crumpled. He turned away, one hand pressed to his chest, as though his heart might come apart. Because I messed up, he whispered. Grace stood still, silence stretching between them. The walls seemed to lean in, listening. What happened? She asked, softer now. What did you do? He faced her again, and in the flickering gaslight for a moment, he looked younger, like the man in the portraits. I tried to stop the pain, he said. I tried to stop time from taking her. I begged every god, every star, every book of forgotten things. And when none answered, I made a bargain of my own. Something cold twisted in Grace's gut. What kind of bargain? Arthur stepped closer, eyes pleading. One that kept me here. One that kept you tethered to me, but not like this. I never meant for it to be like this. She stepped back. You're saying you trapped me here. No, not trapped. Just pulled you back when the time was right. Grace shook her head. You don't get to decide that. Arthur closed his eyes. I know. Behind them down the hall, a sound echoed. Light footsteps on wood. Grace turned. Oliver stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I thought I might find you here, he said, voice low. You shouldn't have shown her yet. She needed to see, Arthur said. Grace looked between them. Oliver's eyes found hers. There are things in this house far more dangerous than memories, Miss Everly.